Here's a bus route that I personally think TfL have made unnecessarily long when it didn't need to be for no reason. And that is the 21. Now, for those that don't know, the 21 runs from Holloway, Nagshead, all the way down to Lewisham. Yes, Holloway to Lewisham. That is very long. If someone had told me 5 years ago that there would be a bus running from Holloway to Lewisham, I just wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't think it would go ahead because you'd think that is unnecessarily long. However, for those that don't know, the 21 actually used to go to Newington Green, which is in between like Dalston and Highbury and Islington. Now, you would think that Newington Green to Lewisham is long, but that's long enough in my opinion, because it would basically just go down to Old Street, following the 141, and then it would go from Old Street to like Moorgate, then London Bridge, and then it would go down Borough, I think, and then down Old Kent Road to New Cross, and then branch off to Lewisham. And personally, I don't think that's that deep, especially if like roads are clear. That's pretty much taking less than an hour. But in a way, it kind of got extended to Holloway, and this is because it replaced the 271. Now, the 271 was a bus route that ran from Highgate Village to Moorgate Finsbury Square. TfL basically deemed this route as useless because it pretty much mirrored a lot of route. Now, TfL basically deemed this route as useless because it mirrored quite a lot of routes, even though it had its own section between Highbury and Islington and somewhere near Hoxton. But because of TfL situation, they decided to merge this route with the 21, which is why it goes all the way to Holloway. I personally never had to use any of these routes, but I can kind of see why TfL did such thing. And the more I see this over time, it kind of makes sense because now everything's warmed up. Like, this happened like a year ago, a little bit over that. From what I've seen, like, I've seen quite a few people use the 21 from Holloway all the way down to Hoxton, and obviously that's because, you know, it replaced the 271, so people need a bus to get from there to Old Street or wherever they're going. So in that fruition, you can kind of see where TfL were trying to go with that logic, and I can't really fault them for it because it does make sense, but in that case, it does also force people to have to change for a bus. Because if you were coming from Highgate, you'd have the 271 taking you straight into central London. Now, the 263 got rerouted to run via Highgate Village rather than Highgate Station. So for people that would use the 271 to get into like Holloway and Highbury and Islington, they now have to use the 263. But obviously, because there's not a direct bus doing what the 271 did, it forces people to get on the 21. And in that way, I guess I kind of see where they're coming from with like getting more people to use a bus rather than having loads of bus routes where people are like spread across the different routes. So I kind of understand it, but it is frustrating when they merge bus routes and they don't up like the frequency of the routes, which means all buses that come are always packed or there's not much seats available, which doesn't make the ride enjoyable for the passenger. But it just goes to show that nowadays everything's a money-making thing. It's never really about the comfort of a passenger. It's just about how can we make more money rather than losing out on money. And again, from a business perspective, I get it. But does it really benefit the passenger? Let me know what you guys think. If you're a local, has this affected you? Let's talk in the comments.